and welcome to the channel. And okay, so what happens is that on a day-to-day basis, I would do several consultations, right? And sometimes I also assist other RCICs or consultants, and sometimes even some lawyers in matters of sorting out certain immigration applications, handling those applications, sometimes complex, sometimes tricky. This particular week, though there were 2 days of holidays in this week has been quite interesting because so many PFLs. Now, what does PFL mean? PFL stands for Procedural Fairness Letter. In most cases, as per the immigration regulations, IRCC, if they have found in your application some very serious concerns and they are on the verge of refusing your application, then they would give you procedurally, to be fair to you, they would give you this one chance, an opportunity, so that you can address those concerns, you can allay the concerns of the officer, and it's your like a final chance that you might have in your application if it can still be salvaged, if it can still be approved, and that's what PFL is. So if at any point of time you or your friends or your relatives or anybody who you know receives a PFL, then please take it very, very seriously. It's not your regular ADR. ADR stands for additional document request. It's not a regular document request where you will just provide some documents and that should be it. Procedural fairness has to be treated with a lot of care, treated like as if you're walking on eggshells. And the repercussions of not responding to PFL may result in a refusal of your application, of course, and not responding to a PFL in an appropriate manner may also further result in, depending on the situation, may also, if there has been any misrepresentation finding, then you may also find yourself with a 5-year ban and a removal order from Canada. If you're in Canada, if you're outside Canada, then a 5-year ban. So this is how it has to be taken. Now, while on the context of PFLs and understanding the PFL, and we're going to go into detail as to how exciting, not exciting, how interesting this week has been with the number of PFLs that have come our way. Before I get into that, first, let's understand misrepresentation. For some reason, people just don't really understand the term misrepresentation. There's a lot of confusion. There is a lot of fear factor around misrepresentation. So a lot of times when people are submitting their application, and if they make an error, they are afraid that will be considered as misrepresentation. Now, not all errors are misrepresentation. So what is misrepresentation or material misrepresentation? Misrepresentation basically is when you are lying in your application, right? So when you're presenting your application, which is not truthful, when you're not being truthful in your application, that is section 16.1, right? That you have to submit your application in a truthful manner. You have to provide all the information in a truthful manner. That's your section 16.1, the basis of all immigration applications. And then your section 40, yeah, that's the where the misrepresentation finding comes up at. And this is when you have lied in your application, you have withheld information which you should have disclosed because this application asks you to do that. And when you have provided fraudulent documents, fake documents, or you have provided information deliberately with the intent of misleading the officer. So if you would have provided the information correctly, the officer may have made a different decision, but because you were aware that the officer could be influenced to a different decision, therefore you chose to deliberately, with the intent to obviously misrepresent, you are hiding information, you are disclosing false information, or you are providing documentation that is fraudulent, fake, or which does not support what you're trying to do in your application. So all of this is misrepresentation. But providing an application which is otherwise going to get refused, not misrepresentation, or let's say how it is. Your company's name is ABC Private Limited, you not writing Private Limited, not misrepresentation. Your work experience was from January 2023 to December 2024, but you wrote from February 23, and therefore there's a 1 month, you made a mistake with the 1 month starting date. not misrepresentation. These are all aspects that you can explain as to why this may have happened. So these are not misrepresentation. You have to understand what misrepresentation, and then understand the consequences behind it. In most cases, if IRCC has already finalized your application and slapped you with a misrepresentation ban, then you have no recourse except hiring an immigration lawyer and taking this to the federal court and challenging this decision under a judicial review. And then, of course, you would have to also be able to prove that from your side there was no misrepresentation, and it is how IRCC has interpreted. It obviously becomes extremely complex. It is very nerve-wracking, and it obviously puts you under a lot of stress as well. So obviously the recommendation is never ever to misrepresent, and if you are doing it, then you have to also be aware of the consequences, and if those consequences come knocking on your door, then don't be shocked or surprised. Now that we are all on the same page with regards to what is misrepresentation, that is clear. What is PFL, procedural fairness letter? That is also clear. If you receive one, you know what to do now. Be very, very careful in responding to them. In most cases, procedural fairness letter will tell you the sections of the law. It will tell you whether there is a misrepresentation finding or that they are considering to ban you under misrepresentation, if at all that is the case. It would also tell you the specific concern that the visa officer has. Okay, it will list down points, it would list down reasons, it would list down description of whatever the concern the visa officer has, and then the visa officer will also list down or specify for you what they want from your side in order to allay their concerns, or in order for you to sort of make sure that these concerns are allayed, and obviously the officer is satisfied that you are on the right side of things. So this is what you will need to do if you see a PFL. Typically, if you see a PFL and if you are trying to do this by yourself without any professional help, then please bear in mind that in most cases, PFLs will have to do that way you are in contravention with one of the sections of the immigration laws. That is one. Number two, and another one which is not that common but happens a lot, is when there is inadmissibility findings in your application. Could be criminal, could be drunk driving, and another one which happens in a few cases, which could be the medical inadmissibility, right? So medical inadmissibility is the, so you could be medically inadmissible to Canada for safety, security, if you have a medical condition which is a threat to safety, security of Canadians. And the third one is if your condition exceeds the income threshold. So that is also something which needs to be responded through a PFL, because PFL basically means the IRCC officer have determined that they will need to refuse your application and they're giving you one chance. So that's different types of PFLs, the way you wish to support, respond or answer to them. Now, just to give you a bit of a background on my weekend, or my week rather, this whole week, as I was telling you, has been very interesting. So I have had total of 8 PFLs. Now, to be very honest, in 1 week, 8 PFLs is a lot of PFLs. Now, out of these 8, there were 4 which were same or similar. Okay. Now, whenever you see a same or a similar PFL happening very close to each other, then you know that there has been some sort of change as far as the way IRCC is looking at things. Because if you get a similar PFL which has a similar concern, and again, as I said, within the same time duration, because in most cases, a PFL will give you time. In some cases, they might give you 7 to 10 days, and sometimes they will give you 30 days. In most cases, between 30 to 60 days, depending on what they are requiring from you. Okay. In some cases, it could be as less as 7 days as well. Depending on the situation, you can always request IRCC to give you more time, depending, as I said, depending on the situation, depending on what kind of documentation are required and whether you will be able to respond to them on time or not. Excuse me. As you can see, my throat is still haven't recovered from this one. So depending on the circumstances, you can request for additional time from IRCC. And again, as I said, depending on circumstances. But because 4 of these PFLs are too similar, one thing that is very, very clear, that IRCC or the officers at IRCC have become extremely stringent, and they become very, very strict with regards to the your application processing. And let me just answer one question which is quite relative here. It says, any idea to which email address PFL will come, or will that email also reflect in the IRCC account as well? Well, in most cases, you should have the PFL in your GCK account. Excuse me. So you will have your PFL in the GCK account, and obviously, as normal, you would receive an email saying there is an update in your account. If you go to your account and you see, it could say a request letter, it could say correspondence letter, or it could say specifically say procedural fairness letter, and that's how you would know. And of course, the title of the document would also say this is the procedural fairness letter. Whenever you see the text of the officer where it says, I have serious concerns, or I'm giving you this time or this opportunity to allay my concerns, always treat it very, very carefully. So coming back to the point, 4 similar PFLs, and that gives me an indication that officers have now become very, very strict. I'm sure these 4 PFLs came to me, or rather I came in touch with this information or these details. I'm not sure how many else are out there. So obviously, I'm not the only consultant, right? There are another 12,000 consultants. There are a few thousand immigration lawyers. And then, of course, then there are the ghosts and people outside, and then people doing it themselves. So as you can imagine, there could be quite a few of those. Okay, so without wasting more of your time beating on the bush, these PFLs, the more stringent ones, have to do with the work experience. 3 of them had to do with the Canadian work experience. 1 of them had to do with the foreign work experience, but it was primarily to do with work experience. IRCC was not satisfied with the work experience. Now look at how much of background check is being done. They validated who signed the document. They checked the LinkedIn profile of the person who signed the document. They checked the address of the business. They checked the Google Maps. They checked the website and the web locations. They checked the company registration data. They checked how long the company has been in business. They checked the company's website or the lack of it. They also checked when was the website or the domain name registered, to who the domain name was registered, what was the relative address. I honestly speaking, that blew my mind. Why? Because I was so impressed. I'm so happy to see this kind of stricter and stringent processing or stringent verification in trying to establish the genuineness of work experience. I am so happy to see that. I wish this had been done in the past for several years, where you and I both know the number of fraudulent applications that have just managed to squeeze through and now are basically claiming, hey, I could do it, you can do it, anybody can do it, kind of a thing. Hate to see those things, but looking at this, there is, you feel like there is hope. There is really hope there with IRCC, and I'm so, you can make out how excited I am to see with IRCC doing this. In some cases, the applications are salvageable in the sense like you can work around. Of course, if it's genuine, then there can be several things you can provide. In some cases, the client or the person themselves will say, well, I can't do this. And then you can pretty much make out that the person is not on the right side of things. And you pretty much raise your hands, you express your code of conduct, and you simply just exit from that particular interaction. However, this is something which you must be aware of, and this you have to be always be aware of. Now, a lot of people, and somebody just asked, can this be done in P2, P1, blah, 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 background check? Well, just for information, processing is not complete until it is complete. And it is not complete unless you become a permanent resident of Canada, means you have received your COPR. And bear in mind, IRCC can always do audit checks. There is also the integrity unit, the integrity unit in the anti-fraud and integrity unit in IRCC. They always do random checks, even on the applications that have been processed. So even if you have become a permanent resident and you basically adopted some unfair and fraudulent methods and means, then the chances are that you can always get a call or you can always get an email which you don't want to hear or see. So that can always happen. If you have a representative, if you already have using a consultant or a lawyer or a practitioner, then the PFL message or the account access will go back to the representative, and they can check. Now, in these 4 PFLs, the similarity I've already explained to you to the extent that they have been checking. In the case of the foreign work experience, they had even called and emailed. They did not get a response. The calls were made to the employer not once, but 3 different times. They also had a person who could speak in the native language, so that excuse that the person, my employer could not speak in English or blah, 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 that was also not the question, because the officer mentioned all of that. There were also instances, or rather in one of these cases, there has been a Canadian work experience instance where the IRCC officer called, rather two officers called, one officer called the employer, one officer called the applicant, and they fact checked at the same point of time. No, obviously I cannot reveal or I cannot disclose the details of these situations, because that would be me, because client privilege. So I cannot talk about details of any of this, but lots and lots of stricter measures, or at least I haven't seen these kind of PFLs before. I haven't seen this kind of strict verifications in the processing. Excuse me. So personally, I'm quite happy to see that IRCC is finally taking such stringent measures. Other than these 4 PFLs, which were to do with the work experience, there was one which had to do with your social media platforms. Now, again, for the reason of privilege, I cannot explain to you what that might do, but I've done previous videos as well. Please, 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 always, always, always keep information consistent with your social media platforms, because any inconsistency, because you have to understand, when you present your application, IRCC operates, or this whole application system operates on honor system. Honor system basically means we are willing to accept what you are saying. We are willing to accept what you're presenting to us, unless we check and we find inconsistencies, and then we're going to come after you. So this in this honor system, and as far as the IRCC is concerned, when they do your background check, when they check about your application, they check on this information. They need to figure out, or they need to validate and verify the information. And the only place to do that is through the open data sources. Now, open data sources, you can call it Google, you can call it social media platforms, you can call it any information where the data about you, about your company, about your work experience may be publicly available. That's where they would go off to. Now, a lot of people say, what if my company doesn't have a website? Well, that's a different case altogether. IRCC may choose to resort to other methods to verify and validate the work experience, but we are talking in about 21st century. We are here, right? We are in 2024, almost 25. Which company would not have IT, or rather the online presence? Very few might be that might, but we're not talking about those cases. We're talking about by and large what happens. So if you have social media profiles, please make sure that they are consistent with the information you're providing. Otherwise, you're getting yourself into some serious trouble. And there have been several federal court rulings which have supported the IRCC's decision when the application was refused, and the person then challenged the application through judicial review. And the judge basically went with IRCC, saying that this information, you made it public on your profiles, and you can now not come and say that, hey, this profile was not valid because I was doing it because I was one too many drinks high, and I did this, and I said, won't work, because you are now presenting completely conflicting information in your PR application, and you are now creating reasons for IRCC to doubt, and your credibility is now in question. Another one which has come to our attention, and obviously this one where we raised our hands, was language test results. I'm trying to figure out how I can phrase this without stepping on my privilege. So language test results, please, I'm not going to go into detail over there, but if you're going to be providing fraudulent test results and expect that IRCC will not find out, some of you may have gotten away with it, some of you continue to get away with it, but when they start pulling that one single thread, everything tumbles down. And in this particular case, this was after the person has already become a permanent resident. Language test results were found, and that's where the problem is. Therefore, all I can say is, if you don't go for these quick fixes and this fraudulent options, these situations would never happen to you. But they're happening, and they're happening. At least if I have come across so many PFLs only in 1 week, as I said, I do not know how many are there. Now, One particular one, which I think I can talk to you a bit more openly, is because the client didn't have any issue with me talking about it. Now, this one is, people create fake profiles on Express Entry. We have talked about this. A lot of people create these fake Express Entry profiles. And sorry, before I go on, guys, please do not do super chats. I will not be doing any question and answers today. Please do not do super chats. I will not be responding to any of the super chats. You can come back tomorrow when we do our live Q&A tomorrow morning, when we do our annual year-end review, year-end roundup, and we can do a Q&A after that. Please do your Q&As tomorrow. I will not be doing any Q&As today. So please do not do any super chats. I will not be able to do it. Of course, you're more than welcome after this video is over to come back and post in the comment section your questions, and I'll come back and try and respond to most of them. Right, coming back to what I was talking to you about, all those fake profiles that people create because they want to check their Express Entry scores. Sometimes they want to sort of just see their score. Sometimes they create the profile just for the heck of it. Sometimes they go to all these different agents across the world and have them create their profiles, and they are just in a rush to get their score. I don't know why you can't check the CRS calculator, right? That is much better to use if you just want to check your scores. But people do it all the time. They put all their information and they put all different kinds of work experiences. The dates are incorrect. The periods of time is incorrect. The title is incorrect. The company's name is incorrect. And then you have to remember, you cannot you cannot delete your Express Entry profile. Once you have created it, yes, you can withdraw it, but that profile remains. Now, this is a very interesting one, and I've got two instances of this, and two different instances actually. One came to us much later. One happened to be somebody who we are aware with. In both the situations, one case is salvageable for sure because we know what exactly went wrong over there. But the other one, unfortunately, is unsalvageable in this situation. And the information that you enter in your Express Entry profiles is accessible to IRCC. Please, for some reason, people just feel that the only application they are submitting is the one that IRCC will be reviewing. That's not true. They do review your past applications. They do review your study permit applications. They do review your visit visa applications. They do review your postgraduate work permit applications. And now it's obvious that they are also looking at your Express Entry profiles, the old ones, the ones that you have withdrawn, the ones you have canceled, the fake profile that you created. Once you have created your fake profile, I keep saying fake profile, cross that. Once you create a profile, that has now recorded so that there is electronic footprint, right? Now that data is recorded. You cannot remove it. You can revoke your GCKey account, by all means do, but that information is there. It cannot be deleted. So when you enter information in your Express Entry profile, old one, new one, you have to be very, very careful as to what you're entering. You just cannot go around entering any period of work, entering any occupation, entering any employer, thinking I will make this I will change it, I will do this, I will do that, I will explain it. In some cases, there is no explanation. For example, if you were working as IT consultant, right? I'll just take a very generic example, nothing to do with my PFLs. I'm just taking a very generic example. Let's say you have work experience as an IT consultant and you are choosing to show yourself as IT consultant. And now when the time comes for the application, you are completely changing the name of the company and showing yourself as an administration manager. Expect some red flags there. Expect some questioning. In your case, if you're unlucky, expect a PFL asking, how is it that at this point of time you're working with company ABC and you said you're an IT consultant, but when you submitted your application, you're now showing yourself as administration manager for company XYZ instead of ABC. Why? How did this happen? And why did this happen? And again, section of misrepresentation could be quoted, and also section of 16.1 could be quoted saying that you are not answering your questions truthfully. So serious alarm bells should be ringing. Similarly, as far as the social media platforms are concerned, somebody had written, or rather their document signed by their colleague. So when I'm saying their colleague means For example, I am an supply chain analyst. My colleague also a supply chain analyst. But you know what we do? My employer is not giving me a document. So what will I do is I will say, hey, you know, colleague, you're also supply chain analyst. I'm also supply chain analyst. Why don't you sign this document for me? I will give it to IRCC. They won't know. Just put your name. Just put yourself as supply chain manager. Just sign it, give it to me. I will submit it. My PR application will get through. You know, that guy has got through. You know, that guy has got through. So I will also get through. You take this document from this person, sign, or this person signs it, and you submit it. And then when IRCC is reviewing it, so now they're also checking your LinkedIn profile. They are checking the person who has signed the LinkedIn profile. And then they realize that this person is not a supply chain manager. Rather, this person is a supply chain analyst, just like yourself. And then you get a PFL. And then you are in trouble. Because now, not only do you have to prove your work experience to be genuine, you have to also prove why is it that you have a document which says you are doing this from a person who claims to be a supply chain manager, but is not. Now you're in serious trouble. So, I mean, I can go on. I have a couple of more, but then if I talk about those, I would have to, no, can't do it. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Please be very, 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 very careful with your applications. Don't treat it like any other form that you are filling up. As I said, Canadian immigration is all about what documentation you present and the information you present. It's not an in-person interview. There is nobody's going to be there across the table talking to you and asking you, so hey, how many years did you work? When did you work? Where did you work? What did you do? Blah, blah, blah. Not going to happen. What you present is what is going to work for you and not going to work for you. So in your case, my recommendation, please, please, please keep your applications absolutely crisp, clean, clear. If there is any aspect of your application where you have made changes, where you yourself feel that this could be flagged out for whatever the reason might be, there is never any harm in adding a letter of explanation. If you have provided the information upfront, it gives the visa officer a chance to understand, okay, so this is what happened over here and this is what you're explaining. Makes sense. Off they go, off they move. Nothing else to worry about, nothing else to flag it, nothing else to be concerned about. But if you're not explaining, then you are creating further doubt in the officer's head. This is also applicable to those people, and I've said this before and I'm saying it again. If in your study permit applications, you have chosen agents who have now, excuse me, provided fraudulent information. When I'm saying fraudulent, I mean, sorry, excuse me. You were not working, but they provided information about some fake work experience. You were studying, but you withheld that information. You were working, but you did not disclose that work experience, all because you thought your study permit will get refused, or your agent told you that your study permit will get refused. So let's not show your master's degree. Let's not show your 2 years of work experience. Let's not show it like this. Let us show that you are unemployed, or let us show that while you are unemployed, let us show that you were working, and let's provide this fake document instead. IRCC will not find out. Now, the level of assessment criteria, scrutiny at the time of your temporary residence applications is much less. But when it comes to permanent residence applications, it's much higher. And all your previous applications are available to IRCC. They can always refer to them. They can always check. So if you did not show your work experience in your study permit, now suddenly you have that work experience. Now, had you shown that work experience in your study permit, there is a possibility IRCC may have refused your application because they might have found that your work experience does not match with the study permit, the program that you're choosing to study. And they might have found that this is not an alignment, and they may have refused your application. So that is material misrepresentation, where you chose to withhold the information. If you're providing fake documents, obviously that's a no-brainer. That's fraudulent anyways, and therefore that's misrepresentation. Withholding information about your education, which you should have provided, withholding information, and therefore misrepresentation. Now you have express entry application, and now you want those additional points. Hey, because earlier you have not shown them, but now you are itching to show that master's degree. You are itching to show that work experience, because that extra 1 year of work experience can give you 50 extra points, right? Please think about it. Please be very careful. I cannot tell you what you should and shouldn't do. You guys are smart yourself. But if you are committing misrepresentation, you have committed misrepresentation, please please know that these things can come back and haunt you even after you become a permanent resident. Just not limited to that. So this is basically what I wanted to discuss with you. I couldn't have put all of this in a Facebook post, on a Twitter post. So I just wanted to sort of make this a very, very quick video to discuss with you guys that material misrepresentation, procedural fairness letters, very serious stuff. And if you do get a PFL, God forbid, then please ensure that if there are multiple things in that PFL, you address each of them separately with a header, with additional documents. You make an appendix, you identify, hey, officer, I got a PFL from you. These are the 3 points you highlighted. I'm going to address each one of them separately. Point number 1, you said ABC. I am giving you XYZ to allay your concerns. Point number 2, then point number 3. Please ensure you address each point separately, carefully, correctly. Provide the valid documents, provide supporting documents, provide as many documentation as you can to address any of those concerns, so that you can come out on the other side laughing and smiling and not facing a problem otherwise. That's all I have for you guys today. People who did a super chat, I apologize. Please come back tomorrow if you wish to, or after this video, please do post your questions in the comment section. I will for sure come back and respond to them. Thank you everybody for joining in. You guys are lovely. Holiday time, Happy New Year coming around the corner. 2025 is looking really, really, what can I say, full of fireworks, right? 2024, please don't forget to log in tomorrow, tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow, we will try and do our weekly roundup early because it's a yearly roundup, not a weekly roundup. We're going to talk about all the different changes that have happened in the year 2024, or the policies and the announcements that were made and how it may or may not have impacted you. We're going to very briefly take a look at 2025. And of course, we will take 1 full hour to answer as many questions as you might have. So tomorrow, 10 a.m. in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, I shall see you then. Until then, take care, stay safe, and of course, happy holidays.